In a land of vineyards and orchards, I'm here in the middle of a grove of olive trees. I'm at Durant in Dundee, Oregon, learning how these guys go from this to incredibly tasting olive oil.
How olive oil used to be made. This is probably somewhere around 150 years old. You know, they bring the olives in, dump them.
This was used at some point, right?
Used at some point, somewhere outside of Barcelona. Yeah.
But not used in a while.
Not used in a while, so it's been retired.
Now Paul Durant says it's a well-oiled machine. A few of them, actually, working together to crank out Durant's olive oils.
This is where the magic happens.
This is kind of this is where, so this is the mill. The olives drop into the screen, and then there's a set of rotating hammers, and we basically pound the fruit through this mesh.
Oh, wow.
And so you break it all, you pit everything, and we'll load it into these tanks, and it holds about 700 pounds, the size of this equipment. And we slowly turn that paste. There's some knives in there, and we heat it. And so with olive oil, there's 3 flavor components you're trying to get in balance,
okay.
And that all happens here. So this is really kind of where we set the stage for how the oils are gonna taste coming out the end. And this is called a decanter. It's the name of this device. And basically, you know, this lid would be closed, and this spinning cylinder, we inject the paste inside of it. And so using centrifugal force, you know, the heavy stuff goes to the outside of the cylinder.
Right.
So that'd be the pit, and the pulp and the skin. Then inside of that, as you're working towards the center, you get a water layer, and then inside of that you get oil. With wine, you know, you finish processing, you bottle, and then you let it age, you know, and
right.
The processing's kind of done. With olive oil, you know, our philosophy is the processing never ends. So you put it in tank, you know, you take care of that oil, and then you filter it after about 60 days to kind of get any of that residual sediment out. And then you just try and keep it as pristine as possible. So we keep it at a constant temperature, we keep it under a nitrogen cap, so all inert gas, and then we bottle every day. So we bottle to demand, and so all of those oils just stay as fresh as possible. It's at its peak flavor right at milling. And then it's on this glide path, and you just want to make that glide path as long as possible.
It's kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah. This was really poor farm ground. So it was farmed, you know, English walnuts, some hazelnuts, cherries, apples, but this was really the less fertile ground in Oregon. So the great ground to grow agricultural crops was on the valley floor. So if you didn't have a lot of money to get started in farming, this is where you came, was these hills.
In 1973, Paul's parents started with about 16 acres and planted an acre of Pinot Noir. That's grown to 135 total acres, with about 70 of those being wine grapes. Years later, the wild idea of planting a grove of olive trees, all in the name of experimentation.
So that is 100% my mother. So, you know, my mom, we started the nursery business in the late 90s. And really, you know, she's got an amazing talent, if you look around here, for all things that grow. And started bringing in some olive trees, some specialty plants to just kind of, as kind of an accent in the nursery, complementary type things with the other plants we were selling. And my dad became very fascinated with it. And so we had some ground that wasn't really suitable for wine grapes. And again, my parents just kind of being entrepreneurs really in ag, planted a few thousand trees in 2005. And really just jumped in. There's ways of grading them based on color. And then if you look on the interior, it's still green. So as they get ripe, that will start, the flesh of the fruit will start to darken up. And then if you feel that, you know, there's definitely, it's getting oily, you know. We had a series of very mild winters. So in 2008, we built an olive mill and planted a lot of trees. And that started the learning for us, because the trees we planted were completely the wrong time. So we had a series of hard winters, and we'd lose these trees, and you know, so we really had to keep experimenting. And the things with olive trees is they don't grow fast. There's not like grapes. You know, the arc of time for an olive tree is quite long. To discover how it's going to behave in a climate. Olive trees, you really need 7 years. They're similar to hazelnuts. And if you plant the wrong ones, or you plant them in the wrong spot, or or your agronomy is not appropriate, you're going to struggle. So we've had a lot of setbacks, But we've been doing it now for almost 20 years, and I think we've really discovered the right varieties that thrive in Oregon and can be successful here. Because just by trial and error.
About 10 years ago, Paul came back to help his parents with the business, something he'd always wanted to do.
How tedious it is to pick them, the stress of milling them within 90 minutes, you said. Why continue to do olives?
Well,
you love it.
I love it. That's a good question. It's hard to say. I like the product. The way it's a really beautiful product. I love the whole science of it. I love growing the trees, and then you get to transform something into this really beautiful consumer product that people are inspired by and they pursue it. It's very unique, and I think that's also a little bit of the genius behind it with my parents. Is like, how do you, in an ocean of wine and and tons of tasting rooms in the county and throughout the state, what makes you distinctive? Obviously great wine, but there's a lot of great wine. But there's not a whole lot of olive oil.
Durant is the only licensed olive mill in the state, and they stay busy. This year producing 30 to 35,000 liters, which works out to be around 10,000 gallons of extra virgin and flavored olive oils.
You go to the grocery store shelf, it's just, it's a sexy Italian label that says olive oil on it. And so this is something where we can say, this is why the oil tastes the way it does.